Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're not just, going to court. Actually, scratch that. We're walking through something way more fascinating. We're exploring this idea of the multi-door courthouse. The goal here? To learn how to actively architect the absolute best fit for your legal conflicts. By the time we wrap up, I promise you'll be looking at conflict resolution through a totally new, highly strategic lens.
So, picture this, a highly relatable nightmare scenario. Imagine a massive, multi-million-dollar business partnership, one you've relied on for literally years, just suddenly collapses in a nasty dispute. What do? Well, most people just panic. They instantly call a litigator and sue. But you know the old saying, right? If your only tool is a hammer, well, every single problem looks like a nail. And if the hammer of public litigation is all you ever use, sure, you might win the lawsuit, but you could completely wreck your business, your privacy, and your cash flow right along with it. To avoid that whole nightmare, we really need a massive paradigm shift. I want you to start thinking of yourself as a dispute system designer. Dispute system design, or DSD for short, completely shifts your focus away from just blindly trying to win a legal battle. Instead, it's about analyzing the totally unique variables of your specific conflict to optimize the resolution environment. You aren't just a combatant on a battlefield anymore. You're the actual architect of your own justice.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the multi-door courthouse concept. Then, Pillar 1, adjudicative processes. After that, Pillar 2, non-adjudicative processes. We'll dive into mixed-mode hybrids, and finally, wrap up with choosing the right door. Let's get to it.
Part 1. The multi-door courthouse.
Now, what's truly visionary about this whole concept is this idea from Professor Frank E.A. Sander back at the 1976 Pound Conference. He basically proposed that instead of a one-size-fits-all courtroom, the justice system should act as a diagnostic hub. This was a huge deal. It brilliantly moved us away from just relying on state-sponsored litigation toward a much more pluralistic spectrum. It's this profound realization that a dispute isn't just a fight, it's a multifaceted business variable that needs a carefully calibrated process.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, Pillar 1, adjudicative processes.
So the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is that behind these adjudicative doors, you completely surrender control. You are taking the decision-making power entirely out of your own hands and handing it over to an independent third-party neutral, like a judge or an arbitrator. And what they do is look backwards in time at legal rights to determine, who is right and who is wrong. But in exchange for giving up that control, you get something very valuable: absolute legally binding finality. In legal terms, that's res judica. The dispute is forcefully, permanently put to an end.
Within this specific hallway, we basically have three primary doors to choose from. First up is litigation. This happens in public state courts. It gives you great transparency, but the catch is it exposes all your dirty laundry to the general public. Second is arbitration. Now, this one is massive for businesses because it offers that same binding finality as litigation, but it's entirely private. It's contract-based. You can actually handpick an industry expert to judge your case behind closed doors, keeping your trade secrets totally safe. And finally, there's statutory adjudication, which you see a lot in the construction sector. That's designed to give a really fast-tracked, temporarily binding decision just to keep the cash flowing while a permanent fix is figured out later.
Let's cross over to Section 3, Pillar 2, non-adjudicative processes.
You'll immediately notice this stark binary contrast between the two pillars. Adjudicative relies on an independent neutral making the call. Non-adjudicative relies on the disputing parties themselves. Adjudicative is your classic win-lose adversarial battle. Non-adjudicative, that aims for a negotiated win-win settlement. While adjudicative looks backward at who broke a rule, non-adjudicative looks forward. It's all about integrating practical interests and future commercial needs.
Behind these doors, the real magic is that decision-making authority stays strictly with you and the opposing party. The first door here is negotiation, literally just you and them bargaining directly, maximum control. The second door is mediation. Here, an impartial neutral facilitates your dialogue. They aren't there to judge you, they're there to help uncover hidden interests so you can actually preserve the relationship. The third door is conciliation. This one is slightly more evaluative, meaning the neutral might actively step in and propose non-binding settlement terms. The ultimate goal here is creative solution engineering. We're talking about things like modifying a future contract instead of just handing over a check for damages.
All right, Section 4, mixed-mode hybrids.
So eventually system designers realized, hey, we can create some incredible efficiency by combining these processes. It's what some people playfully call the Frankenstein option. Enter hybrid architectures like MedArb and ArbMed. These are specifically designed to resolve as many issues as possible through voluntary consensus first, but they have a brilliant built-in safety net. If you guys just can't agree, the system automatically defaults to a binding adjudicative determination. It's kind of the best of both worlds. You get a real chance to preserve the relationship, backed by the absolute guarantee of finality.
Let's actually walk through one of these fascinating sequences. ARB-Med. So, first, you hold a formal arbitration hearing. The arbitrator decides who wins and who loses, and they draft the legally binding award. But, and here is the absolute genius part, they seal it in an envelope without showing it to anyone. With that envelope just sitting right there on the table, the parties transition into mediation. That sealed envelope creates this sobering shadow of the law reality check. Honestly, the sheer anxiety of what might be inside that envelope totally forces parties to compromise. If they manage to settle, the envelope is quite literally burned. But if they hit a total impasse, the envelope is opened, and whatever is inside is instantly binding. Wild, right?
But, it isn't completely perfect. Combining these modes introduces some serious systemic friction, especially if the exact same person acts as both your mediator and your arbitrator. I mean, think about it. If you privately confess a massive weakness to a mediator, and then the mediation fails, that same person is now your arbitrator. It is psychologically impossible for them to just forget your confession. That totally compromises confidentiality and risks poisoning their final award. What happens is chilled communication. Parties become absolutely terrified to be honest during the mediation phase. So, to mitigate this huge due process vulnerability, expert system designers basically mandate the use of separate, distinct neutrals for each phase.
Finally, Section 5. Choosing the right door.
I want you to consider this your diagnostic matrix. It's essentially a mental checklist of hard filters that systematically maps your specific dispute to the exact right mechanism. Ask yourself, is the relationship completely broken down? Go adjudicative. Is it a vital ongoing alliance that you absolutely must preserve? Go non-adjudicative. Do you need a public legal precedent to guide your whole industry? Well, you're going to need a judge for that. Do you require strict privacy to protect your trade secrets? You must choose arbitration or mediation. By weighting these specific factors, the correct path just logically reveals itself.
Let me give you a really direct, actionable rule of thumb to take away from all this. If the financial value of your ongoing relationship is greater than the financial value of the specific claim you're fighting over, you absolutely must default to a non-adjudicative door to protect that alliance. On the flip side, if the opposing party is just entirely hostile, acting in bad faith, or flat out refusing to communicate, do not waste your time on mediation. Skip straight to an adjudicative door to get a coercive, binding result.
So, what does this all mean? It means effective justice in the modern world isn't just about rushing to file a lawsuit. It depends entirely on finding the best fit. You now possess the actual blueprint to the multi-door courthouse. So I'll leave you with this somewhat provocative thought. When your next massive conflict inevitably pops up, are you going to blindly hand over your power and let a judge decide your fate in public? Or will you act as a true dispute system designer and architect the perfect resolution? The choice, as always, is entirely yours.